We're live. 98.1 The Bone Zone WTUF. Sticky Dan here with the morning coffee posse. It's 62 degrees in the metro area with 12 minutes to the top of the hour. I'm here with Mr. Too Damn Chris. Chris, you spent last night at Mr. Poppins downtown for the 7th annual Cheese Whiz Festival. How was it down there last night?
Well, Dan, it's a hell of a time out there at the Cheese Whiz Festival.
Great. Listen, we're going to catch up with Mr. Too Damn Chris after the next commercial, but let's hear it again from Mr. Gavin Castleton with a cut off of his album, #Blessed, and here's Average Man. I'm not mad at that.
Maybe you should really, you got to, if you're doing like the local, like Zoo Crew, like local, like rock radio station, you got to throw in like a, some sort of like call in, like in call in number 3 gets 2 tickets to Foghat at the Raceway Complex. Something like that. At the 2 tickets to Foghat at the county fairgrounds.
So, Chris, how you feeling? I don't have to do the fucking radio voice.
No, you don't have to.
No, I don't want to do the radio voice. The radio voice is retired. I don't need it. It's in the past. And besides, my fucking voice. I was doing it today. I was on a city bike for commuting today, and I was just practicing my hardcore screaming, my screaming vocals the whole way. Specifically when out loud. Yeah, absolutely. I was going over a bridge, and a guy went past me on a brought a fucking.
Oh, you on a bike or something?
I'm on a bike. Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking you were like on a city bus or something.
No,
like screaming.
There's plenty of that, but that was not me. No.
Yeah.
I was tastefully. I was doing some of Amity Affliction. I was doing Soak Me in Bleach.
I had a really fun time.
Shout out to Joel Birch.
I remember one like particular time when I was living in Santa Rosa and I was like riding around on a bike, and I was singing the like that Shania Twain song, like "Man, I Feel Like a Woman." I was like singing it like very loudly to myself as I was like riding around. It was very funny to me.
It's a fantastic song. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong.
Like outside the Kmart, I was like driving, like riding the bike right outside of the Kmart, like doing that. It was fun. That Kmart actually burned down like a few years later.
Do you think
we're probably
it was related?
one of the last Kmarts. I couldn't believe they even still had a Kmart, but I mean, it was a relic then. You know, it had to have been one of the last handful in the country. And then just like Mother Nature just fucking like wrecked it.
No. Mother Nature knows that these things just they can't exist past their past. Where human history has allotted them to exist, which is primarily in the 1980s and 1990s. Then there it shall remain. We don't need them anymore. We need large big box stores to consolidate into a increasingly small amount of firms that get to price gouge us, because what choice do we have?
I remember, speaking of Kmart, I have this other like very distinct memory of like being like a little kid, like in the 90s and like this definitely wasn't allowed then, but like I remember like I was with my mom and we were like waiting in line to check out, and there was like a guy in front of us that was just like also waiting in line and like casually smoking a cigarette, and then he like put it out like on the floor and like pushed it out under his shoe. Nobody said anything. He like smoked the whole cigarette, and like I'm pretty sure you couldn't do that in Kmart in like fucking like 1995, but I couldn't imagine that anybody getting away with that now. Simpler times.
No, this like, and so that shit, and like smoking in restaurants and stuff. I remember being in the New Orleans airport, and there was like a smoking room that you could.
There's still there's still smoking rooms in airports. There's a smoking room in the Nashville airport.
See, look at me with my liberal northeastern bullshit. Damn.
You have to either buy a drink or pay $10 to get into it.
Is that fucking true?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm buying a drink anyway. So.
This is nanny state bullshit.
I mean, I'm getting
Chris.
on a plane. I'm obviously drinking.
Yeah, obviously. And I want to be up there where it's 20% humidity, and I'm hungover somehow within like 17 minutes. That's what I miss from COVID. I haven't been on an airplane in God knows how many years, and if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna have what would be the I'm trying to think what I would have had at a probably a martini at an airport bar. Good bang for the buck.
I don't know. I mean, I drink gin and tonics usually, but I've like in an airport I get beer. I just don't trust them. I've got the gin and tonics. I've got the mixed drinks at the airport. I don't know. They never seem to
Garbage. No, it sucks.
I go for the beer.
It sucks.
I go for the safe choice.
Smart. And thank you for that sage advice.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's listening and they're perhaps listening in a hotel bar, not a hotel bar, an airport bar, try to get the beer.
Now when I was a young boy, about the age of 5, my teachers taught me I could be the greatest man alive. They told me I could change the world, be whatever I wanted to be. There was no one in the world like me. Every one of us was so unique. I'd not be an average man. No, sir, I'd be no average man. So I have those big dreams.
Welcome back, everyone, to Eat the Rich. This is a show about our political economy, late-stage capitalism, and the millionaires, billionaires, and multinational corporations hell-bent on staving off its death rattle. I'm Dwight, and today we have with us Chris.
Hello.
All righty.
All right.
So this is one that it was of interest to us to think about. And frankly, I feel like since we've done the Glencore episode, and we've done a few episodes on like big, large metals and mining conglomerates and like Glencore metals and mining marketers. I think we did one on Rio Tinto as well. And you know, there is a strong through line of, you know, extreme exploitation with all of them. And in particular, the one that kind of struck us was specifically with the Democratic Republic of Congo, and specifically with the extraction of cobalt and copper. And, you know, that's what's so crazy, especially is like cobalt is used primarily in the world for batteries. And as we are moved towards more, like, I'm using big scare quotes here, greenifying the economy, our political economy, we're leaning a lot on batteries. And I think what we're seeing here in this increasingly brutal extraction of cobalt, specifically with the practice of artisanal mining, it's some really sick shit that is it's almost, I think, willfully overlooked. And like most things are in the dreadful supply chain that we have in regards to slavery and child labor. And there was one character from that Glencore episode that we had talked about tangentially that, frankly, I feel like I've been haunted by. And no, I'm serious, bro. I've been like thinking about him like nearly every week. Like that name just like pops up in my head.
It's funny. It's funny too because I was just have sort of just like a passing awareness of this guy before Dwight mentioned him to me, and like when I like looked at the Wikipedia page and I was like scrolling down and seeing like fucking you know, Panama Papers, you know, Mossack Fonseca, and I was like, oh, this is all of Dwight's shit. Like this is all I see. This is all the stuff that you're every keyword that's there to like light up my fucking dopamine receptors. It is exactly correct. And so yeah, I mean, I use that verb purposely, saying like I feel like haunted by this character because. And I'll just cut to the chase, and no other way to put it, that what he does and how he's made his billions ? His official kind of net worth is 1.2 billion, is expressly through corruption, specifically in the DRC. I don't think I've said his name yet. His name is Dan Gertler. Dan Gertler. He is an Israeli billionaire. He's 48 years old. And like I said, you know, if you go back and listen to our Glencore episode, you know you'll understand that he had this you know, this business relationship with Glencore. And of course, Glencore says, you know, we don't do anything as far as bribery or corruption goes. Like, of course not, and all the Swiss bullshit. But this is it is expressly how Dan has made his fortune. And as a quick reminder on, I'm just going to read something quick here from the Wilson Center. It was a good enough primer on the artisanal mining, specifically in the DRC. I'm just going to read something here to jog our memory. This is from Michelle Fabiola Lawson from September 2021, and it's called "The DRC Mining Industry:
child labor, and formalization of small-scale mining. And it reads as follows. Last year, many took to social media using the hashtag #NoCongo, to fight against the cobalt supply chain that fosters child labor and the exploitation of small-scale artisanal miners. The Democratic Republic of Congo has some of the world's most valuable minerals, such as copper, gold, coltan, cobalt, and diamonds, and has the Earth's second largest forest after the Amazon. Yet, the DRC is one of the world's poorest countries as poverty and humanitarian crises plague its citizens. Now, I will just, of course, amend this, which we remind ourselves all the time when we're talking about Africa and, other parts of the world where they say this is a poor country. Well, it clearly is not a poor country. It is just the distribution and, exploitation from primarily European and, Anglo-American sort of companies that exploit it and do not share any of those riches with the people that live there. But it says here, more than half of the world's cobalt resources are located in the DRC, and over 70% of the world's cobalt mining occurs there. Artisanal miners produce 20% of the country's cobalt output. The remainder comes from foreign-owned firms, primarily Chinese, whose rechargeable battery industry accounts for 60% of global cobalt demand. And it says here, cobalt is an essential raw material used by large tech companies for rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, electronic devices, electric cars. However, the DRC's valuable cobalt industry comes at a price. Extraction of the mineral is linked to child labor, safety risks, environmental abuses, and corruption. And for the record, of the roughly 250,000 Congolese mining for cobalt, 40,000 of which are children. Straight up. Some as young as 6 years. And if you I look down at my phone and I see a battery, or I look at my laptop and I see a battery, and I think, is there a chance that a child's hands were once on the raw materials of this? A child that may no longer be alive because of the exploitation of this. So really sick shit, to say the least. So let's talk specifically about Dan Gertler and how he has been involved in this. And I would like to start off by handing it over to you, Chris, to talk about his interesting family history, to say the least.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of an interesting lineage here. So he is in the cobalt mining business, but he's also the family business is the diamond mining and the diamond business.
Yes.
His grandfather was a guy named Moshe Schnitzer, who was the longtime president of the Israel Diamond Exchange. He was born in Romania originally in 1921 and then immigrated to Palestine in 1934 when it was still British ruled. And he originally was not going to go into the family business and went to college instead and studied history and philosophy at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. But then apparently under pressure from his father, he left school in 1942 and then went to work in a diamond polishing plant. Then went on to be like a plant manager at a plant in Tel Aviv in 1944. In 1947, he was one of the founders of the Israel Diamond Exchange, which consolidated all of the diamond industry institutions in the country into one group. He was elected vice president of that organization in 1949. In 1960, he opened his own firm with his son Shmuel Schnitzer, who is Dan Gertler's uncle. And then from 1967 to 1993, he was the president of the Israel Diamond Exchange, like the longest serving one, and like oversaw the organization at a time that annual exports on polished diamonds from Israel grew from $200 million annually to $3.4 billion annually. Interestingly, he was apparently used by Prime Ministers Yitzhak Rabin and Golda Meir to pass like diplomatic messages to the Soviet Union, like under the guise of conducting diamond transactions.
Yes.
And he was awarded the Israel Prize in 2004, which is their highest civilian honor. He died not too long after that. I believe he died in 2000. 2007 or something like that.
That's right.
2007 it looks like. He was also awarded the Order of King Leopold of Belgium for his contributions to the international diamond industry, which I thought was just like way too on the nose.
It's a bit on the nose.
I did look it up, and in fairness, it is not talking about King Leopold. It's not named for King Leopold II, who
right.
like basically did the same sort of thing and like fleecing the Congo of their rubber and ivory and stuff. But it's actually named for his father, King Leopold I. He did have some other activities outside of the diamond business, though.
What would those be?
Yeah, in 1941, he joined the Irgun, which was a Zionist paramilitary organization and a precursor of the IDF. The Irgun was known for all sorts of street violence and bombings and lynchings and murders and executions. They particularly liked doing like sort of retaliatory murders. Like if a Jewish person was murdered somewhere, they'd go and like find a random Arab or Arabs to kill in return. Like city buses full of Arabs were sort of a favored target of theirs. And they were founded in the early 30s. Early 1931 was when they sort of got started, but they really ramped up the violence beginning in like 1936, 1937. And just like reading from the Wikipedia article here about a couple of their things that happened in the year 1937 when they started becoming more outwardly violent. It says an Arab bus was attacked in Jerusalem. 2 other locations in Jerusalem around the same time, Arabs were shot as well. In Tel Aviv, a hand grenade was thrown at an Arab coffee shop, injuring many of the patrons. On September 5th, 1937, the Irgun responded to the murder of a rabbi on his way home from prayer in the Old City of Jerusalem by throwing explosives at an Arab bus that had left Lifta, injuring 2 female passengers and a British police officer.
Like, that reads to me explicitly as just terrorism.
This is like ISIS shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, yeah, this is terrorism, basically. I mean, this is like, I try to avoid calling things terrorism, but this really feels like a really good time to actually use that.
Yes.
But the violence continues to escalate into 1938. After a Jewish father and son were killed in Jerusalem in June of 1938, Irgun members threw explosives from the roof of a nearby house, just killing two Arabs and injuring 4. And this is like they're retaliating against like other random innocent people who had nothing to do with whatever they're fucking pissed off about. They planted landmines in a number of Arab markets. They detonated explosives in markets and stuff like that, planted landmines and killed up to at least 70 people, but with these landmines that they planted in markets and stuff like that. And again, this is in 1937, 1938 that the violence is really starting to ramp up. And then it's 1941 when this fucking dude joins it. So
yes.
I mean that should give you some idea of sort of where he's at ideologically. The violence would only continue to ramp up through the 40s, leading into like the 1948 Palestine War. In 1946, they bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 91 people and injuring 46. The hotel was the site of the central offices of the British Mandatory Authorities of Palestine. And the explosion, like basically, like it looks almost sort of like Oklahoma City, where basically like one side of the building is just like completely caved in and collapsed. It was like a very large explosion, and many of the people who were killed were not, they were not working for the British government. They were not in the hotel. There were people on the street outside or in adjacent buildings or nearby buildings. In 1948, on April 9th, 1948, they massacred the village of Deir Yassin, killing 107 Arab civilians. And this was like right at the in like the very next month, actually less than a month later, the they proclaimed the establishment of the state of Israel, and the Irgun and the other all these, they weren't the only one. There were several of these sort of paramilitary militias, but they were all absorbed into the IDF. They just became the IDF. Like that's literally the origin story of the IDF, where they came from, and all of these guys. I believe that Moshe Schnitzer went on to then after Like he joined the Israeli army in 1948,
Right.
Going directly from the Irgun into the army. And Menachem Begin was like a leader in the Irgun, like at the time as well. He would go on to become prime minister of Israel, obviously, and there were lots of people who would later go on to become influential in Israel, who were part of this group in particular, and a lot of these sorts of groups. And he would make all these sort of connections with them, and they would go on to help him later on in his business life. And it's sort of kind of how he got as wealthy as he really did.
It's so crazy. I have to mention too, I don't know if you saw how literally Albert Einstein reacted to this. Yeah,
what was the quote again? I'm trying to remember the quote exactly.
The quote was speaking about the Herut party. He says, a political party closely akin in its organization, methods, and political philosophy and social appeal to the Nazi and fascist parties. Which by the way,
absolutely.
That Herut party was a I'm just reading here from the Middle East Monitor. It says was a right-wing nationalist party, which went on to become the Likud party led by Benjamin Netanyahu.
There he is.
But there's
the guy.
There's an interesting. I'm just reading this letter here. It's cool. It's like the actual letter, a photo of it. And this was a letter that Albert Einstein, wrote to the American Friends of the Fighters for the Freedom of Israel. And he wrote, "Dear Sir, when a real and final catastrophe should befall us in Palestine, the first responsible for it would be the British," which, fair enough, that's pretty safe bet. And the second responsible for it, the terrorist organizations built up from our own ranks. I'm not willing to see anybody associated with these misled and criminal people. So, pretty level-headed guy, pretty reliable source.
Refreshing to a time when that was opinion that was expressed, I guess. And it's all been normalized now, like just like decades and decades of brutality, and none of this has gotten any better or anything like that. I mean, this is the same now as it was then. Basically, they just have more power.
Exactly, and this is for me, and why I thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about that sort of thing is specifically because this is the world, the lineage that Dan Gertler grew up in. Mm-hmm. And, it's mind-boggling to me that how much he has to be, influenced by that sort of brutality. And certainly if I were one that was born into that, it would not a stretch of the imagination to say like, hey, I think that there's just some people that are destined to be subjugated. And, I might as well be the guy that does the subjugation. So switching gears now to Dan and what his life was all about. He got into the diamond business and specifically going to the DRC when in 1997, he was 24 years old, a young man. And when he went there, he ended up befriending a similarly young gentleman by the name of Joseph Kabila, who was the son, conveniently, the son of the president of the DRC.
And he was young when he got to the DRC as well, right, Dan? He was like 20-something.
24. Yeah. He was 24. Yeah, it was in 1997. He was born in 1973. This was, and he just, I don't know exactly, it's kind of opaque. We don't really know exactly how they came to meet each other. I imagine that there was, the fact that he came from, some notoriety of the diamond trade. I would imagine that he had access to some of the larger ranks, and maybe it was just dumb luck that he ended up in the same room as the president's son. But they developed an extremely close relationship. Now, I want to kind of fast forward a little bit because we're going to talk about that relationship a little bit later. But I thought it would be interesting. I wanted to hear him in his own words. And there was only one video that I could find, which was of him recently. This is like in the last 2 years, talking about a new artisanal mining operation. Now, if you'll recall, and Chris, I'm going to ask you to share your screen and play this in a moment. But if you'll recall that the kind of business model that they have for the artisanal mining is, it's almost like it's Uber, but for mining with your hands. Like, you are paid how much you extract, and you are given no tools. You are given, minimal infrastructure, And if you look at one of these pictures of what an artisanal mining site looks like, it looks like a anthill or something. It's just people digging into the earth with rudimentary tools, not going terribly far down. But the point is, that's where a lot of the kind of brutality arises. Is A, it's fucking horrible conditions, and B, like, can you imagine being, desperate, having traveled however many, and we'll hear about this in a second, like coming from all parts of the country to, earn money for yourself or your family, and then somebody next to you like hits something. Like, of course there's desperation, and there's going to be like violence among the the people that are in this similarly desperate situation. So let's just hear him talking to the Congolese people, the Congolais, and hear his pitch to them, I suppose.
After so many years, with such kind of investments, with so much effort into it, with the help of God, today we arrived to a stage where brothers and sisters Congolese, we can share together the wealth of the copper and cobalt mines of the DRC. I'm happy to announce you today, brothers, sisters, Congolese, that we would love to invite
That's
you,
infuriating.
every single Congolese, no matter where it's coming from Kinshasa, from Bandundu, from Katanga, from Kasai, no matter from where, come and be our partner. Come and enjoy the wealth of the copper and cobalt of the DRC. On every ton of copper or cobalt, which is going to be mined in the project that we are going to introduce, each and every Congolese will be a partner with us, and they will get paid for every ton which is going to be exported. We are going to offer sincere, real, transparent, professional partnership to the Congolese people. This is the first time in the history that the Congolese citizens will be the direct beneficiaries of the Congolese wealth. We are committed. This plan is going to kick off before year's end. By knowing the history in the Congo of some NGOs and some journalists, they will keep talking and never delivered anything to you, brothers and sisters. Same NGOs, same journalists, they were all proven wrong. We kept quiet and deliver. We always over-delivered and less talking. Brothers and sisters, we are making history today. We are doing a test case in one of our projects that we are involved.
I cannot stomach any more of that.
It's like a really sort of like they keep cutting from like a farther back angle to like a closer up angle on his face, and it's like very disorienting. It's like there's like no rhyme or reason to it. It's very
I mean it
just
seems
shit tier directing. It's a fucking F directing. Yeah,
it seems quite clear to me that he basically had no preparation for this.
Who is he talking about in particular? What NGOs and journalists he must be talking about?
I'm very glad that you.
In particular.
I'm very glad that you asked that, Chris. Very smart because that's a very kind of like Trump-like sort of thing to say.
Yes,
right?
that's exactly what he couldn't help himself. He couldn't help himself.
We heard the haters. We heard the losers try to tear us down to just try to stop our movement. Everybody,
you got to say brothers and sisters in the Trump voice.
Brothers and sisters, it's gonna be. We're gonna have the best cobalt coming out of the ground. You're not gonna believe it. So I'm gonna save that for the very end. So please keep that in your mind. And I don't want to lose sight of that. But we're gonna get back to that later on because it's gonna kind of tie this together. And the specific timing of this, I believe this is from like December-ish 2021. So keep in mind too, this is like in the middle of. The no vaccines. This is in the middle of the pandemic, worldwide and all this shit. So, scary stuff. So we're going to get back to that. Oh God, I really want to talk about it now, but it's too good because there's, if you'll notice at the bottom of that video,
it's like Doctors Without Borders or something that he hates. It's
similar. It's similar. I'll just say that. At the bottom of the video, I thought that this was curious, and we're going to talk about this later, but it says, or in the description, it says, #Dan Gertler. Let's just we'll go through that later.
Okay.
We'll go through that later. So to explain more about like specifically his exploitation in the DRC, I'm going to read from this Washington Post article to kind of color what his involvement, what his presence is like there. And I'm reading from this 2012 Washington Post article called "Dan Gertler Earns Billions as Mine Deals Fail to Enrich Congo." And of course, this is the context of what he's saying.
That's not what he said was going to happen.
Exactly. Right? He's saying like, hey, we're going to, I love how he says, for the first time in history. Meanwhile, he's been there for like 25 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, you might be part of the problem. But anyway, it reads here, Dan Gertler's bearded face lights up as he looks out the helicopter window. Below, an installation rises from a clearing in the Central African forest, where it transforms ore mined from the ochre earth into sheets of copper. Look at it. Look at it, the Israeli billionaire, 38 then, shouts through the headset. This is what life is all about. Gertler says, as the chopper lands in the scorching afternoon heat of the DRC. Everyone comes with dreams and illusions and promises. Everyone wants quick deals. They don't want to invest. We are real. Gertler hops out into the dust of Mutanda, a mine controlled by his partner Glencore International that holds cobalt and some of the highest grade copper in the world. He climbs into a Toyota Land Cruiser to tour the mine, tapping messages into one of 3 BlackBerries, whose batteries, like most of the smartphones and laptops, often depend on cobalt to keep their charge. Check this out. Gertler has stakes in companies that control 9.6% of the world's cobalt production. 10% he's got his hands in. And that's just the beginning of his influence in Congo, the largest country of sub-Saharan Africa, with the world's richest deposits of cobalt and major reserves of copper, diamonds, gold, tin, and coltan, a ore containing the metal tantalum that is used in consumer electronics. His Gibraltar registered, oh God, I can't wait to talk about his companies. His Gibraltar registered Floret Properties owns stakes in various Congolese mines through at least 60 holding companies in offshore tax havens such as the British Virgin Islands. Gertler, whose grandfather co-founded the Israel's Diamond Exchange in 1947, arrived in Congo in 1997 seeking rough diamonds. The 23-year-old trader struck a friendship with Joseph Kabila, who then headed the Congolese army and today is the nation's president. He's no longer, but we'll talk about that later. Since those early days, Gertler has invested in iron ore, gold, cobalt, and copper, as well as agriculture, oil, and banking. In the process, he's built a net worth of at least $2.5 billion, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Now, that's half of what I said that he was worth today, which we'll get to later. So, what about his critics? He's also acquired a roster of critics. Many of the government's deals with Gertler deprive Congo's 68 million people of badly needed funds, according to the London-based anti-corruption group Global Witness and lawmakers from Congo and Britain, the country's second biggest aid donor after the United States. Dan Gertler is essentially looting Congo at the expense of his people, said Jean-Pierre Muteba, the head of a group of non-governmental organizations, NGOs. I know he loves that topic, that monitor the mining sector in Katanga province with most of Congo's copper. He has political connections, so state companies sell him mines for low prices, and he sells them for huge profits. That's how he becomes a billionaire. Case closed. Period. Full stop. That's how he does it. He has his political connections, mainly at this time of the time of writing, the fucking president of the country, and he buys the mines at a low price and sells them for big profits. That's how he does this. Out and out corruption, out and out pillaging of a nation's, wealth. Okay, so continuing here. In the 8 months preceding the November 2011 elections, in which Kabila won a second 5-year term, companies affiliated with Gertler bought shares in 5 mining ventures from 3 state-owned firms, according to the minutes of board meetings, company filings, and documents published later. The state companies didn't announce the sales. I mean, in any fucking, country, one of the anti-corruption efforts, and this is, common practice in a lot of countries, industrialized nations, is like, things have to go out for bid, right? Like if it's a state-owned enterprise, you want to sell it to the highest bidder. But in the case in the cases here, they just didn't even announce the sales. It says in some cases, prices paid were below valuations of the projects made by analysts at Deutsche Bank, Numis Securities, and Oriel Securities. Gertler said he did not buy companies at below market rates or engage in kickbacks, and frankly, I believe him. Oh, here he is in his own words. "The lies are screaming to the heavens," he said in his native Hebrew during 3 days Bloomberg reporters spent with him in the Congo and Israel. He returns home to Bnei Barak, an ultra-Orthodox suburb of Tel Aviv, each week to spend the Sabbath with his wife, Anat, and 9 children. I think he has 11 children now, if I'm not mistaken. And by the way, and I don't know if it mentions it in this article, but he came from like a secular family. His family wasn't like crazy religious, and he, for whatever reason, has followed an ultra orthodox lifestyle.
He's his grandfather's grandson.
That's right. So here's an interesting one. How did this affect the country? Congo has a history of making deals out of the public view. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, has halted a $500 million loan program with the country. It said the government didn't adhere to its demand to publish the full details of a 2011 mining deal between a state-owned miner and a company that it reportedly is affiliated with Gertler. Congo will lose out on 3 loan disbursements worth about $225 million, according to Oscar Melhado, the IMF's resident representative in Congo. So, not to say that the IMF's presence in loaning, money to the countries such as the Congo is a good thing. However, it is his direct involvement directly caused the lack of incoming capital to the country. So I will just stop this. Oh no, this is really good. I forgot about this. I think it's in the other article that I wanted to read, but I won't. It says here, Global Witness has called on Glencore and the FTSE 100. FTSE, that's the London Stock Exchange. FTSE 100 index listed Eurasian Natural Resources Corp., 2 companies involved in the pre-election deals with Gertler, to publish details of the transactions and dispel the anti-corruption group's suspicions that Congolese officials received kickbacks for selling assets to Gertler. Gertler said disclosing the deals to the public is the Congolese government's responsibility. "We're a private company. Why should we announce?" he said. "I should get a Nobel Prize," added Gertler, who paced and waved his arms as his demeanor swung between anger and charm. "They need people like us who come and put billions into the ground. Without this, the resources are worth nothing." I'd say he's confident, if nothing else. It's so fucked up. So this was a fun, and of course we always have to kind of like listen to, are there any friends of ours that come up in these sorts of things? And it says,
of course,
between Gertler and Joseph Kabila, the bond between the two men is so strong that Kabila at times uses Gertler as a special diplomatic envoy, including in 2002 when the Israeli businessman met with then U.S. National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice to ask for help ending Congo's war with its neighbors. Amazing. So just to flesh out the relationship between him and the president's son, who then became president, Joseph Kabila, it says Gertler's love affair with Congo, began in 1997 when the country was one of the world's top 5 producers of diamonds. That May, insurgents led by Laurent Kabila, the father of the current president, overthrew the corrupt regime of Mobutu Sese Seko, a U.S. ally who had ruled for 32 years. Not saying that he wasn't corrupt. I'm just saying it's like, what can you do? After taking Kinshasa on May 17th, Laurent Kabila declared himself president and renamed the country the Democratic Republic of Congo. A few days later, Shlomo Bentolila, the chief rabbi of Kinshasa's Chabad Lubavitch Center, arranged for the young diamond merchant to meet Kabila's son Joseph, the new army chief, at the Intercontinental Hotel, Gertler said. The two clicked, he recalled. Both carried a heavy responsibility. Kabila was the commander of thousands of troops, and Gertler was trading $2 billion of diamonds annually. One day, Kabila suggested that Gertler meet the president. Laurent needed money to fight his war and offered Gertler a monopoly on Congo's diamond sales. Kabila asked for $20 million in cash, and Gertler agreed. He was back in Israel celebrating the deal when the Congolese president called. He needed the money immediately. Using a mix of bank credit, inheritance, cash reserves, and liquidated stocks, Gertler said he scraped together the payment and sent it to the Swiss account of Congo's central bank. Gertler had bet his fortune on a president at war. The risks became evident in January 2001 when a bodyguard shot Laurent Kabila dead and his son took power. So, to say the least, I don't know what to say. This is just documented corruption from Don Gertler and his involvement in Congo. It's just extremely clear. Like there's no what's the fucking word? Equivacy? Unequivocally? There's no equivocation? You know what I'm not fucking that smart, man.
The word.
The word. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's unequivocal. Fool me can't get fooled again. It is what it is, man. It's just simply corrupt. There's just no other way around that. So moving on here for a moment, as I think we have kind of understood, his involvement in the DRC and what he has done to enrich himself using that corruption, right, and those connections. Now, part of his name came back in 2016 with one of the most radicalizing moments in my life, the Panama Papers. Now, I'm reading quickly from a Le Monde newspaper from France called and it's translated, so forgive me if it's a little goofy or whatever, and I don't speak French. But it says, Panama Papers, Dan Gertler, king of the Congo and offshore. The Israeli businessman's fortune is in tax havens, but his interests are in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where he prospered in the shadow of Kabila father and son. Dan Gertler is one of those clients that even the sulfurous offshore tax domiciliation company, it's literally translated, and I get it, but it's a little weird. Mossack Fonseca does not want. The 42-year-old Israeli businessman at the head of the vast and opaque mining empire in the DRC has been in the sights of the International Monetary Fund since 2012. NGOs and the think tank of Kofi Annan, Africa Progress Panel, accused him of looting and corruption. But if the Panamanian firm ticks when it has disputed political figures and companies targeted by UN sanctions among its clients, it's because it felt cheated by the billionaire. So long story short, it went on to say that, I guess Don Gertler used Mossack Fonseca in a way that was like the tax obfuscation and cheating, but not in the way that they liked, I guess. It's a den of vipers, basically. So there's not much to be said. It said, furious, Jennifer Mossack, the daughter of the founder of the Panamanian company, ordered the closure of any entity linked to Don Gertler, whom she described in 2011 as, quote, a dealer in blood diamonds. This was from an internal message that was intercepted by Le Monde. So, come on. I mean, what do you really expect, man? I mean, you're doing corruption for the world's elite. What do you expect? Now then we flash forward to the Paradise Papers, which was another set of papers that came out as a result of an investigation from the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. And this was in 2017. And it says here, I'm reading, Room of Secrets reveals Glencore's mysteries. Law firm's internal files reveal oil, mineral, and grain trader Glencore signed secret deals and loaned millions to a high-risk business partner. Who was that business partner? None other than Don Gertler. It says, in the world's poorest country, again, that's bullshit, the Democratic Republic of Congo, where Glencore acquired an interest in major copper mines, Glencore's history is revealed in its greatest detail through leaked documents. Over the years, investigators have tried to piece together the full extent of the relationship between Glencore and Don Gertler, a Israeli businessman with friends in high places in the DRC, who helped Glencore negotiate access to the sprawling Katanga mine. The new revelations, unearthed in more than 1,000 pages of documents, set out how Glencore provided a $45 million loan to Gertler, to a Gertler-controlled company, while he helped Glencore strike a deal for the mine with the DRC officials. The leaked files provide the most detailed evidence yet of the behind-the-scenes lobbying and the money flows that helped Katanga, in which Glencore was just a shareholder at the time, acquire mining licenses. The files also raised questions about how Katanga, which was later taken over by Glencore, managed to pay a price that critics have viewed as less than the license's real value. In response to the questions from the ICIJ, Glencore said that price for the mining licenses was agreed to before Gertler entered the negotiations, and that its loan to the company controlled by Gertler was made on, quote, commercial terms. Long story short, it's bullshit. It's obvious bullshit. So, we move forward a little bit to 2017, right? And this is December 2017. Donald Trump, the president of the United States at the time, did a very interesting thing, which was enact the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, right? The Magnitsky Act, which this is like a whole, it's been in our vernacular, Putin, blah, 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 Trump, blah, 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 no collusion, no collusion. By the way, one of my favorite Trump moments of all time was when he maybe got off of Marine One or something like that, and he walked up to the press corps, and just the first words out of his mouth, as he even just like barely gets to the mics, is just no collusion, no collusion. He totally stays on topic, man. I love it. So, using the Magnitsky Act, this was, and I'm reading this, an executive order blocking the property or persons involved in serious human rights abuse or corruption. And there's 13 individuals that are sanctioned, like we're doing now with, Russian billionaires, sanctioned and prevented from doing business with U.S. companies, using U.S. banks, and more importantly, even using U.S. currency or the ability to own U.S. currency. And the third one named on this executive order was none other than Dan Gertler. Nationality, Israel. Alternate nationality, Democratic Republic of Congo. He was stopped from doing business using the currency of dollars. Now this is like very, very effective, right? In stopping people from being able to use these things, to use, the dollar to do these business transactions. So interesting. And I thought that this was like a pretty interesting move by the Trump White House, right? I mean, like typically they, you expect the worst from the worst fucking idiots in the world, right? And this is objectively like a good thing to sanction this guy. But interestingly, just before Trump left office, those sanctions were taken off of Dan Gertler. It says here, I'm reading from the New York Times from January 2021 by Eric Lipton. It says, Trump administration quietly eased sanctions on Israeli billionaire. The reversal by the Treasury Department during the administration's final days came after an appeal by lobbyists with close ties to the former president. I wonder who that would be. A lobbyist with close ties to the president. The Trump administration quietly moved in its final days to ease sanctions imposed in late 2017 on an Israeli billionaire who had been punished by the Treasury Department for corrupt and abusive mining practices in the DRC. Again, I have to mention, we always got to look for our old friends here. The reversal by the Treasury came after an appeal by lobbyists with close ties to former President Donald J. Trump, who were hired by Dan Gertler, the Israeli billionaire, including the lawyer.
This is Manafort, right? Who is this?
Good.
Who's this got a bit?
Good guess. I'm pretty sure he was in prison by that point. But it has to be none other than lawyer Alan Dershowitz.
Oh, there we go.
Oh yeah, we love it, buddy. He helped, of course, in case you forgot, he helped represent Mr. Trump during his first impeachment. Mr. Gertler was accused in 2017 by the Trump-era Treasury Department of using his connections to the former Congolese president to arrange opaque and corrupt mining oil deals. The reversal by the Treasury drew immediate condemnation by human rights advocates who said they hoped that Biden administration would reverse the action. And that's exactly what happened. Of course, this is from the State Department from March 8th, 2021. Revocation of license granted for Dan Gertler. It said today, the Department of the Treasury, in consultation with the Department of State, revoked the license that was issued to specially designated national Dan Gertler and blah, 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 blah. So the point is the sanctions have returned. And that's great, right? Because we want to make sure that he is unable to do the terrible things that he's doing. Well, unfortunately, if we can remember, the thing that he was the video that we were watching earlier and listening to earlier in the episode was from 2021. This was after Biden has taken office and reinstated the sanctions. So how is he still able to do these deals and to utilize dollars in which to do so? Now, if you'll recall, I said put on ice those thoughts about the NGOs, right? Because he's pissed off about NGOs for some reason, right? And I'm reading here from the PPLAAF. That is the Platform to Protect Whistleblowers in Africa. And this NGO, right, for accountability and, to protect whistleblowers that are, that are calling out wrongdoing. I'm going to read from a July 2020 press release here. It said, controversial billionaire Dan Gertler appears to have used suspected international money laundering network to dodge U.S. sanctions and acquire new mining assets in DRC. Says here, controversial billionaire Dan Gertler appears to have used a money laundering network stretching from Democratic Republic of Congo to Europe and Israel to evade U.S. sanctions against him, funnel millions of dollars abroad, and acquire new mining assets in DRC, which is revealed in a joint investigation by Global Witness and the PPLAAF. The groundbreaking evidence shines a light on the workings of Gertler's complex business empire and a system apparently designed to conceal the movement of millions of dollars. This scheme would allow Gertler to continue reaping the vast financial benefits of his business deals in DRC despite being sanctioned by the United States. The sanctions against Gertler, a close personal friend of DRC's longtime former president Joseph Kabila, prohibit him from doing business with U.S. citizens, companies, or banks. Let me explain. So it continues here saying, the revelations highlight critical loopholes and lapses in international sanctions enforcement and anti-money laundering frameworks with lax banking regulations, lawyers, and corporate secrecy enabling the scheme. There's a quote here. It says, this is by Gabriel Bourdon-Fatal, the project manager at the PPLAAF. It says, we and Global Witness analysis based on documents provided by whistleblowers despite great risks to their personal safety, uncovers a complex web of shell companies, secret bank accounts, and proxies apparently put in place to assist Gertler and his accomplices. The investigation lays bare the ways in which the loopholes of the international financial system may have been exploited by Gertler to dodge sanctions. Our investigation appears to show how the machinery of the global economy can be employed by bad actors for their own personal benefit, and in this case, to the detriment of the Congolese population, over 73% of whom live on less than $2 per day. So, how did this go down? It said the report's findings suggest that Gertler relocated his business interests from secretive offshore tax havens to the DRC with the help of proxies. Gertler and his network of proxies then set up bank accounts at the Congolese branches of the Cameroon-based Afriland First Bank. New names started to appear on both companies and bank accounts connected to Gertler in a variety of subtle ways, including the name of someone implicated in a VAT carbon tax fraud that cost the EU 5 billion euros. It's just like, it's the worst people in the world coming together to do this. So what are we saying here? What happened? He's got friends willing to put up their own names to use his money and do his business because they are not sanctioned, right? And I'm sure they get a cut, right? They get a big cut of it by doing that, right? That's how it works. And here's an example. It says, in total, between June 2018 and May 2019, at least $100 million flowed through bank accounts associated with this network. Much of it was denominated in U.S. dollars, despite the U.S. sanctions, and almost 70% of it was deposited into cash in accounts apparently connected to Gertler or his associates. Among the various transactions revealed today, at least $21 million was sent to unknown accounts held outside the DRC, and $25 million was sent to DRC's controversial state-owned mining company, Gesamines. That's the state-owned mining company which has sold many licenses to Gertler in the past. So he's getting away with it. It might cost him, but he's getting away with it. Now, at the time, and this is what one of the things I want to close with as far as information goes, is why is he pissed off at NGOs, right? and it's because of the PPLAAF, which is the platform to protect whistleblowers in Africa. Two, I'll just say, extremely brave men came forward to whistleblow on this. And I'm just reading here from Bloomberg from literally earlier this month, from early June. It says, Congo whistleblowers win defamation case against a French lawyer. Said the lawyer of Afriland Bank DRC said whistleblowers faked data. So without going too far into this, these two men, Grady Koko Lombanga and Navy Malela Mawani, both came forward as whistleblowers. And the French lawyer for the bank in Cameroon that they worked for said that they leaked data that was fake. And they countersued, saying that this was defamation. This was defamation, and they won. They won the case. Fuck you for trying to pull that shit. God, that fucking pisses me off. That these guys came forward they could have been killed, but they saw this shit and they came forward and shone light on what was happening. Extremely brave, in my opinion. Now, the last thing that I want to just mention here, as a result of what I was saying before in that YouTube video, in the caption, it said hashtag Dan Gertler.
Oh, yeah.
Did you search it on Twitter?
No, I didn't. I've been saving it. Should I go ahead and do that?
Yeah, take a look, because I hope I'm not wrong here, but I read this as paid astroturfing. So if you look up hashtag Dan Gertler, one of the top ones here is from a gentleman named Elvis, who has 225,000 followers on Twitter. I believe he is in Ghana, is what it says on his profile. But he has a tweet here saying, they want to discourage serious investors coming in Africa as hashtag Dan Gertler, who brings in close to 14 billion to the Congo in 20 years for their plans. It's something Congolese should not accept. Stop PPLAAF. Hashtag ONG scandal, which is just the French way of saying NGO. Hashtag global witness liars. Hashtag Afriland proud Africans. Hashtag stop neocolonialism. And it's a very weird way to kind of say this, it seems to me. But it seems clear to me that, like, and there's a few other big tweets like this, which is like pro Dan Gertler, pros, saying, hey,
I like this one. He's invested billions, and he's also the biggest taxpayer in Congo, and yet they still don't see his worth.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's like the people that's what the people, like the same shit that the people that like in like Elon Musk's replies say.
Yes,
like his defender is like, well, he's the biggest taxpayer in the country.
Exactly. I mean, and those people sadly were not paid to say that. I mean, this reads to me as like a half-assed kind of like social media campaign to clear his name or to drum up kind of like local support. I doubt that it had much of an impact, according from what I can see from Twitter. But it's some sick shit. I mean, to kind of pull this to a close, I mean, we've talked a lot on this program about mining specifically and the global supply chain broadly.
Well, what I was thinking about actually, because I've been thinking about it since Shane. I'd never heard of the fucking like the deep sea floor mining that Shane told us about. And like that was like that, like
it's like Lockheed, the CEO from
Cobalt
Lockheed
is one of the cobalt is one of the primary minerals that they mine for when they're doing that. So
yes.
I wonder if Dan's going to be expanding into.
Hopefully, he can.
Not enough people to brutalize doing it that way. Just marine life.
I would love to see if he can hold his breath that long.
Yeah.
I mean, again, throughout this program, I think one of the things we've taken, great efforts to discuss is our global supply chain and the ways in which primarily, North American and European consumption drives and willfully closes the eye and turns the head the other way to what is a system based on child labor, brutalization, exploitation, and just an increasingly creative way to make life worse for those that had no other sin other than being born on top of valuable minerals. again, I sit here with phone and laptop in hand, talking into a microphone, and I can't help but feel like the pain radiating off of them, and understanding that I'm looking at my phone and I wonder, did a child's hands ever touch the materials and the raw materials that are in it right now? And the answer is I can't answer that. I mean, we talked about this with Nestle, I think it was, where it was something like 50% of the chocolate that comes into the United States is just straight up from child labor, but of course it is mixed in with other sources. And so at the end of the day, when you bite into a Hershey's bar, you have no idea, whether or not it was harvested inhumanely or as the result of child slavery. And I think there is few kind of large popular, I mean, certainly in any bit of like our wide political discourse, this is just not like a hot topic, except for, a smaller cohort of people that are fiercely, fighting for the rights of people like that. And at the end of the day, we're just this fucking Leviathan that just keeps consuming, to no satiation of the gaping maw. And I just, a guy like this, Dan Gertler, in my opinion, probably understands this very well and is just quixotically going through his life because of a dumb luck connection that he made, on top of the wealth that he had from the diamond trade in Israel, from stemming from the earlier part of the 20th century, and is just living it to the fullest. I mean, the fact that he comes out and says these kind of boisterous things to me shows that he's fearless, and that maybe that's because of his own constitution, but probably more so because there's no real effort on behalf from the industrialized countries to like put an end to a guy like this. It's so fucked up. And I mean that, like I said, the verb that I used in the earlier part of the episode, feeling like I'm haunted by this character, because it's just like he has enriched himself in such a way that is only done on the backs of people that are massively outgunned.
Yeah, I mean, it's like even before he came along, like his family wealth was like built on colonialism, basically.
Yeah,
based
exactly.
on colonizing Palestine. Exactly,
and not to mention the diamonds that they're trading that is
right.
Been, harvested from mainly sub-Saharan Africa. It's really sick shit, and I continue to be painfully stimulated by the understanding of our global supply chain and just how much of it is built on this sick exploitation. Fuck him. Fuck Glencore. Fuck all these people. Fuck all these fucking European and American companies that just hide behind this veneer of like, hey, we're doing a good thing by providing. Look at the world ticks because we do what we do. Fuck you. It doesn't have to be that way. There's a different way to do this, and specifically fuck anyone that does this. This an unbelievable amount of exploitation in Mother Africa. It's some sick shit. So that's Dan Gertler. Feels good to come to the end of that because I've been thinking about him for months. Fucking Dershowitz, man. Like he's not any less like vocal. Like how does we have?
I mean, you gotta wonder. I mean, because Netanyahu and Trump were so close as well. Because when you were talking about the like easing the sanctions, like Trump sort of quietly easing the sanctions on his way out of office, I was sort of wondering how much lobbying may have been done there on behalf of his connections in the Israeli government, because they were very close to Trump. Trump like being very close to the Netanyahu government. Yeah,
and then expressly from Alan Dershowitz, who was like, "Come on, he's a nice guy. Come on, Donald, please." And then he did it. It only lasted a week or whatever, but like 2 months or something. But
thank you, Brandon.
But yeah, I mean, look, and maybe he counted on that. Maybe it's like, all right, I'll do it, and he'll have a week to get his affairs in order. But the incoming president is probably going to renew it, and maybe that was just enough of a window for him to get his affairs in order and get these proxies in place. Mm-hmm. So I mean, again, it fucking comes down to us again, and just thinking about like how this is continued. And like, you know, earlier on in one of the articles, it said the U.S. is the largest, you know, giver of aid to the DRC. And it's like, it's just a way to fucking curry favor, you know, and just say, you know, and have our foot in the door whenever something may be inconvenient or convenient, whatever it is. We just need degrowth, honestly. Like, we can't keep doing this. We just fucking can't keep doing this. All right. Anyway, that's Dan Gertler. Thank you for fucking digging through the fucking mud with us on this one. Maybe a bad turn of phrase compared to the subject material that we're talking about here. But again, you know, appreciate everybody that's paying attention to our global supply chain and understanding like the ways in which it is just brutally exploitative. That's all, Chris.
Stay cool.
I think let's stay cool.
Okay.
Be well, friends. Until next time.
Bars calling off and I daily on. Taking more shots in the car alone. Battle loans, your dome. Injustice in tone. Who got the diamonds? Who gonna find them? Who gonna find them? I wanna time them. Diamonds and guns, diamonds and guns. It's a wicked world that we live in. It's cruel and unforgiven. It's a wicked world that we live in. It's cruel and unforgiven.